Vira NYSS crouched beside her dying hearth, counting and recounting the 11 copper coins scattered across the cold stone floor. The fourth time, she prayed to the moon goddess that the number would change. But no miracle came. A miracle had never come for Omegas like her. The notice from the territorial guard hung nailed to her door. The harsh words burned into her mind even without looking. 7 days to pay 3 months of back taxes, 23 silver coins, or face exile into rogue lands. Her hands trembled as she dropped the coppers back into her mother's embroidered pouch, the only inheritance she had left besides this crumbling cottage and a dying brother. Outside, thunder cracked so violently the wooden walls shook. Rain hammered the roof like angry fists. The elders said the Moonshadow territory had never seen a storm this fierce. They called it the Breaking Storm, once in a generation, lasting 3 days and nights, marking great change. Vira stared into the empty cupboard hanging open on the wall. 1 jar of honey, meant for medicine not food. A bundle of dried wolfsbane and yarrow she'd planned to sell at the distant village market tomorrow. Half a loaf of black bread, gone hard as stone. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she ignored it. She'd gotten used to that over the past 6 months. The fire sputtered. She held her breath, watching the last ember glow weakly in the ash. 1 log remained, the final piece of her mother's rocking chair she'd been burning piece by piece. The woodpile had run out 2 weeks ago. Everything had run out. From the corner, Kale's fevered breathing reminded her why the cupboard was empty, why she'd sold everything, why she kept going when every bone in her body screamed to give up. Her brother, 14 years old, burning with silver poisoning from the rogue attack that had nearly killed him 6 months ago. He needed moon petal extract, 60 silver coins per vial, and she'd used the last dose 3 days ago. The healer in town refused credit now. No more charity for Omega trash, he'd sneered. Vira had sold everything she could. Her mother's healing grimoire, worth more than she'd gotten for it. Her father's silver dagger, a family heirloom. Even her winter cloak, though she knew she'd freeze without it. None of it had been enough. The cottage was freezing. Vira wore 2 threadbare dresses layered over each other, wrapped in her mother's tattered grey shawl, curled into herself against the cold that bit through everything. The pack had cut off her firewood allocation last month when she couldn't pay the Omega tax. She'd thought about begging the pack healer for help, but pride stopped her every time. Stupid pride. What good was pride when you were starving? When you were cold? When your brother was dying and you were 7 days from exile into lands where rogues would tear you apart? Then came a pounding at the door. Vira jolted upright, heart hammering against her ribs. It was past midnight. Who would come to the outcast quarter at midnight in the middle of a storm like this? This place wasn't safe even in daylight. Decent wolves avoided it. Only the desperate, the broken, and the dangerous came here. She stood slowly on numb legs, every instinct screaming danger. Through a crack in the warped wood, she saw him, a tall man in torn clothing, soaked from head to toe. Water streamed from his dark hair. His face was all sharp angles and brutal strength, eyes like winter steel. Tattoos marked his forearms, warrior class, maybe military. But that wasn't what made her breath catch. In his arms, wrapped in a cloak too fine for any commoner, was a little girl. Her small face was flushed crimson. Her lips pale, almost blue. Her eyes closed. And on the man's sleeve, collar, and hands, blood. Every rational thought in Vira's mind screamed, danger. Alpha. Midnight. Storm. Blood. Turn him away. Bolt the door. Survive. But beneath the scent of rain and blood, she caught it, the child scent, fading fast. Burning with fever. Laced with something else. Something wrong. Vira's mother had been a healer. Had taught her daughter everything before the pack killed her for using forbidden Omega magic. Vira recognized the signs instantly. High fever, labored breathing, the faint smell of silver and wolfsbane mixed together. Poisoning. Deliberate. If that child didn't get help in the next hour, she'd be dead. Vira was an Omega. Powerless. Outcast. 7 days from exile. She had nothing, not food, not money, not safety. Opening this door could mean death. This man was clearly fleeing something, someone. His enemies could follow. Could burn her cottage. Kill her and Kale for helping him. But she'd been a healer's daughter before she was broken by this world. And that child was dying. Hello friends. Before we journey deeper into Vira's story, I invite you to subscribe and share in the comments where you're listening from. Your presence here matters. Now, let's continue. Vira's hand moved to the bolt before her brain could catch up. She threw the door open, and a blast of freezing wind and rain hit her like a physical blow, nearly knocking her backward. The man standing there was massive, almost a head taller than she was, broad-shouldered, built like the warriors she'd seen in the pack's elite guard. But his eyes, those steel-sharp eyes that should have been cold and commanding, were filled with raw panic as he looked down at the child in his arms. Please. His voice was rough, breaking on the word. My daughter. High fever. Our convoy was attacked 4 miles north. Bandits killed my guards. She's been like this for 3 hours. I saw your light. Please. Vira didn't ask about the convoy. Didn't ask about the guards. Didn't ask about the blood staining his clothes or the desperation that radiated from him like heat. She focused on the child. Only the child mattered. Come in. Quickly. The man entered, rain streaming off him onto her bare floor. His presence filled her tiny cottage like a storm contained in flesh, making everything seem smaller, more fragile. But Vira had no time to be afraid. Put her on my bed. Now. She pointed to the corner where her thin straw mattress lay. The man moved with surprising gentleness, laying his daughter down as if she were made of glass. Vira dropped to her knees beside the child, her healer's instincts taking over completely. She pressed her palm to the girl's forehead. Burning. 40 degrees or higher. Vira's fingers moved swiftly, checking the child's pulse at her throat. Racing. Erratic. Like a trapped bird beating against cage bars. She pulled back the fine black cloak and examined the girl's wrists. There, faint silver burns, precise and deliberate, marking the pressure points where veins ran close to skin. How long has she been unconscious? Vira's voice was steady, professional, even as her heart raced. Since the attack. 3 hours, maybe more. The man's hand clenched into a fist at his side. We stopped at a roadside inn. She had honeyed milk. 10 minutes later, she collapsed. Poisoned. Vira had suspected, but hearing it confirmed made her blood run cold. This wasn't accidental wolfsbane exposure from touching the wrong plant. Someone had laced that child's drink with silver and wolfsbane extract, a combination designed to kill young wolves slowly, painfully. Who did this? The question escaped before she could stop it. The man's face turned to stone. When I find out, they'll pray for death long before I grant it. The cold certainty in his voice sent ice down Vira's spine. This was not a man who made empty threats. But she couldn't think about that now. She needs moon petal extract. Immediately. It's the only thing that purges combined silver wolfsbane poisoning. Vira stood, her mind racing through her limited options. Without it, the toxins will reach her heart within the hour. I'll pay anything. The man stepped forward, desperation cracking through his controlled exterior. Name your price. I have gold. Connections. Whatever you need. Vira almost laughed. Almost. I don't need gold. I have moon petal. 1 dose. But. She turned toward the corner where Kale lay sleeping fitfully, his skin pale and clammy with fever. Her brother. Her responsibility. The only family she had left in this world. The last vial of moon petal extract sat on the shelf above him. 60 silver coins worth of medicine. The dose that was supposed to ease his suffering, to buy him another week, maybe 2. Vira looked at the dying child. Looked at her suffering brother. Made her choice. Keep her still. This will hurt. She crossed to the herb shelf with trembling hands, reaching past bundles of dried yarrow and feverfew to grab the small glass vial. The liquid inside shimmered with an iridescent blue glow, concentrated moon petal, harvested under a full moon, worth more than most omegas owned in a year. What are you doing? Kale's voice, rough with sleep and fever, came from the corner. Saving a life. Go back to sleep. That's my medicine. No accusation in his tone. Just tired resignation. I know. Vira uncorked the vial, the sharp scent of moonflower filling the small cottage. I'll get more. With what money? Kale coughed, his whole body shaking. Vira. Sleep, Kale. Please. She heard him settle back down, heard his labored breathing return to the rhythm of fitful sleep. Guilt gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. She'd made her choice. She'd live with it. The stranger watched her with those razor-sharp eyes, missing nothing. That medicine was meant for your brother. Yes. His sick. Silver poisoning. 6 months ago. Rogue attack. Vira knelt beside the child again, supporting the girl's head. But he can wait another day. She can't. Something shifted in the man's expression, shock, perhaps, or disbelief. As if he'd never encountered someone who would sacrifice their own family's well-being for a stranger. Hold her shoulders, Vira commanded. When the moon petal hits her system, the toxins will fight back. She'll convulse. If she thrashes too hard, she could hurt herself. The man positioned himself immediately, his large hands gentle but firm on his daughter's small shoulders. Up close, Vira noticed details she'd missed before. The calluses on his palms spoke of weapons training, the scars on his knuckles told of countless fights, but the way he touched his child was achingly tender. What's her name? Vira asked, tipping the child's head back carefully. Sarah. His voice roughened on the name. Her name is Sarah. Sarah, Vira repeated softly, brushing damp hair from the girl's burning forehead. Sweet girl, this is going to hurt. But it will save you. I promise. She tipped the vial to Sarah's pale lips, letting 3 precious drops fall onto the child's tongue. Then 3 more. The dose for a child her size, half the vial. Vira's hand didn't shake even as she poured away medicine that could have given Cale a week of relief from his pain. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sarah's back arched violently. A scream tore from her throat, raw, agonized, the sound of poison being ripped from young flesh. Black veins spread across her skin like cracks in porcelain, visible and hideous. Her small body convulsed so hard the stranger had to use his full strength to hold her down. What's happening? Panic edged his voice. The moon petal is forcing the toxins out. This is normal. Hold her. Vira pressed her hands to Sarah's chest, right over her racing heart. Stay with us, Sarah. Fight. You're strong. I know you're strong. The child thrashed, whimpering, tears streaming from beneath her closed eyelids. The black veins crawled up her neck, across her cheeks, a visible map of poison trying to maintain its hold. Vira closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself, to that warm, golden place her mother had taught her to find. The place where Omega healing magic lived. Illegal magic. Forbidden magic. Magic that had gotten her mother burned at the stake while Vira watched, helpless and screaming. She'd sworn never to use it again. Sworn to hide what she was. But this child was dying. Vira pulled on that golden thread of power, and light flooded from her palms. It poured into Sarah like liquid sunlight, warm and bright and ancient. The black veins began to recede, retreating from the pure Omega magic like darkness fleeing dawn. Vira felt her own life force draining with every second. Healing magic always cost. There was always a price. Her mother had taught her that too, in the weeks before they killed her. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not until the last trace of poison retreated, until Sarah's convulsions eased, until the child's breathing steadied into the deep, peaceful rhythm of healing sleep. When Vira finally pulled her hands away, she collapsed backward, gasping. The cottage spun around her. Her vision blurred. She tasted copper, had bitten her lip hard enough to bleed. Through the haze, she saw the stranger staring at her. His face had gone completely still. Shock. Recognition. Something like fear. You're a golden healer. His voice was barely a whisper. Vira's blood turned to ice. No one should know that term. Golden healers had been hunted to extinction 200 years ago, after the Alpha Uprising. After the old Omega bloodlines were systematically destroyed, their magic branded as dangerous, their power too threatening to the new Alpha-dominated hierarchy. Vira's mother had been the last. Or so everyone thought. I don't know what you're talking about. Vira's voice came out weak, breathless. She tried to stand but her legs wouldn't support her. The healing had drained her more than she'd expected. Don't lie to me. The stranger stood slowly, his massive frame towering over her. I saw the light. Felt the magic. That wasn't common hedge healing or herbal remedy. That was royal Omega power. Bloodline magic. Vira's heart hammered. If he knew what she was, he could report her. The pack would burn her just like they'd burned her mother. They'd call her an abomination, a threat to the natural order. They'd make Kale watch. Please. Her voice cracked. I just saved your daughter. Don't. The stranger crouched down to her level, those steel-gray eyes boring into hers. For a terrifying moment, she thought he'd grab her, drag her to the pack elders, claim the reward they offered for exposing forbidden magic users. Instead, he pulled off his torn outer shirt and draped it around her trembling shoulders. You're freezing. And you just burned through half your life force to save a stranger's child. His voice was quieter now, gentler. I'm not going to hurt you, Vira NYSS. I'm not going to report you. I'm trying to understand who you are. Vira pulled the shirt tighter around herself. It was still damp but warm from his body heat, and it smelled of pine and rain and something else, something ancient and powerful that made her Omega instincts flutter with nervous awareness. I'm nobody, she whispered. Just a hedge healer. Just an outcast Omega trying to keep her brother alive. You're lying to yourself if you believe that. He settled back on his heels, his gaze never leaving her face. Royal Omega bloodlines don't just disappear. They go into hiding. They suppress their power. He stopped, realization dawning across his features. You don't even know, do you? You don't know what you really are. Before Vira could respond, Sarah stared. A small whimper escaped her lips. Instantly, the stranger's entire focus shifted. He was beside his daughter in a heartbeat, his hand gentle on her fevered brow, brushing damp dark hair from her face. Sarah, sweetheart, can you hear me? The child's eyes fluttered open, amber, like autumn leaves caught in sunlight. Unfocused at first, then slowly clearing. She looked around the unfamiliar cottage, at the dying fire, at Vira sitting exhausted on the floor. Papa. Her voice was small, confused. Relief broke across the stranger's face like sunrise after endless night. Yes, I'm here. You're safe now. Where are we? What happened? Sarah tried to sit up but her father gently pressed her back down. You were sick. Very sick. But this kind woman saved you. He glanced at Vira. Her name is Vira. Sarah's amber eyes found Vira's face. For a long moment, the child simply stared. Then, without warning, she struggled out of her father's arms and stumbled across the small space, collapsing into Vira's lap. Small arms wrapped around Vira's waist. A damp cheek pressed against her chest. Thank you, Sarah whispered. Thank you for making the bad hurt go away. Vira froze. She wasn't used to touch. Wasn't used to affection. The pack had taught her that Omegas existed to serve, not to be cherished. That her kind was weak, lesser, barely tolerated. But this child held her like she was something precious. Slowly, carefully, Vira wrapped her arms around Sarah's small, trembling body. Her hand came up to rest on the girl's damp hair. You're welcome, little one. You're very brave. She felt the stranger's gaze on them, heavy and unreadable. When Vira looked up, she found him watching them with an expression she couldn't name. Something raw. Something almost like pain. Sarah, he said quietly. You need to rest. Let Vira rest too. She's tired. I don't want to let go, Sarah mumbled against Vira's chest. She's warm. Like. The child didn't finish, but Vira heard the unspoken word. Like Mama. The stranger's jaw tightened. He looked away, toward the window where rain still hammered against warped wood. Come on, sweetheart. His voice was rough. Back to bed. Reluctantly, Sarah released her hold on Vira. The stranger lifted his daughter easily, carrying her back to the straw mattress and tucking her in with practiced care. Within moments, exhaustion claimed the child and she drifted into peaceful sleep. The cottage fell quiet except for the storm outside and Kale's labored breathing from the corner. Vira tried again to stand. This time her legs held, though barely. She swayed, catching herself against the wall. You need to sit. Rest. The stranger was beside her in 3 strides, his hand on her elbow, steadying her. You're going to collapse. I'm fine. You're not. He guided her to the single rickety chair by the cold hearth. When did you last eat? Vira didn't answer. Didn't want to admit it had been 2 days. The stranger's eyes swept the bare cottage, taking in the empty cupboard she'd forgotten to close, the eviction notice still nailed to the door, the lack of firewood, the thin blankets, the visible poverty that screamed from every corner. "You have nothing," he said. Not a question. Not an accusation. Just a statement of terrible fact. "No." Vira met his gaze without flinching. "I have nothing. But what I do have, I shared with you. With Sarah. And I don't regret it." Something shifted in those winter steel eyes. The hardness softened. Respect flickered there, real, genuine respect. "Why?" He crouched before her chair, bringing himself to eye level. "You don't know who I am. Don't know what I do. You saw blood on my clothes, knew I was running from something dangerous. Why did you still open the door?" Vira looked past him to where Sarah slept, peaceful and pain-free now. "Because she needed help. Because I'm a healer, even if I have no official position, no pack standing, nothing. Because..." She paused, her throat tight. "Because my mother taught me that having power, any kind of power, even magic, even healing skill, means nothing if you don't use it to help those who suffer. She died believing that. I won't dishonor her memory by turning away a dying child." The stranger studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her. He bowed his head. Not a casual nod. A true bow. Deep. Respectful. The kind alphas gave only to those they considered equals or superiors. "My name is Tox," he said quietly. "Just the one name. No pack affiliation. No family line. No title." Vira knew he was still hiding something. Everything about him screamed secrets and danger. But she was hiding too. "Tox," she repeated. The storm showed no signs of stopping. If anything, the breaking storm intensified as the night deepened, thunder shaking the cottage walls, rain falling in sheets so thick it turned the world beyond the window into nothing but darkness and water. "You should stay until dawn," Vira said, her voice still weak from the healing. "Travel in this would be suicide. The forest paths flood. You could lose your way, walk right into rogue territory." Tox glanced toward the door, clearly weighing the risks. "My enemies might track me here." "Then you definitely can't leave. You'd lead them straight to wherever you're going next." Vira stood, her legs steadier now. "At least here, in the outcast quarter, no one pays attention. The pack doesn't patrol this area. We're beneath their notice." He considered this, then nodded once. "Until dawn, then." Vira moved to the cold hearth, placing the last piece of her mother's rocking chair onto the dying coals. She struck the flint, coaxing the wood to catch. Small flames licked upward, providing meager heat but better than nothing. "You're burning furniture," Tox observed. "I ran out of firewood 2 weeks ago." Vira didn't look at him. "I've been burning my mother's things piece by piece. This was her rocking chair. Next will be the old trunk. After that..." She shrugged. "After that it doesn't matter. We'll be exiled in 7 days anyway. The notice on your door. 3 months of back taxes. 23 silver coins. I have 11 copper." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Even if I sold everything left in this cottage, it wouldn't be enough." Silence stretched between them. Vira felt his gaze on her back as she stared into the small fire. "Your brother," Tox said finally. "The silver poisoning. How did it happen?" Vira's hands clenched. "Rogues attacked him 6 months ago. He was gathering herbs in the borderlands. Stupid, I know, but we needed medicine to sell. They came out of nowhere. 3 of them. Kale fought back." Pride crept into her voice despite the pain. "He's only 14, but he's brave. Killed one with a silver-edged knife we'd found. But the other 2 got him. Clawed him with silver-tipped weapons. By the time I found him, the poison had spread through his whole system." "You saved him." "Barely. Used every bit of healing knowledge my mother taught me. Spent every copper we had on moon petal extract to keep him alive. But silver poisoning doesn't heal. It just lingers, slowly killing you unless you can afford constant treatment." She turned to face him. "The healer in town charges 60 silver per vial. I need at least 2 vials a month. Do you know how impossible that is for an outcast Omega?" Tox's expression was unreadable. The pack should provide for its members. Even Omegas. Especially after a rogue attack. Should. Doesn't. Bitterness crept into Vira's voice. We're outcasts. My mother was executed for using forbidden magic when I was 16. Kale was 10. They branded us traitors by blood. No one helps traitors. What was her crime? Vira met his eyes. She healed the wrong person. A rebel alpha who'd spoken against the pack elders. They said she chose sides, used her magic for political purposes. They burned her in the town square and made us watch. She saw something flicker across TYX's face. Anger, perhaps. Or recognition. And yet you still use the magic they killed her for. Only when absolutely necessary. Tonight was necessary. Vira wrapped her arms around herself. You asked why I opened the door. The truth is, I opened it because I'm my mother's daughter. She taught me that healing isn't political. Pain doesn't care about pack allegiances. And children, her voice broke slightly. Children especially deserve saving, no matter who their parents are or what side they're on. TYX stood, moving to the window. Rain streamed down the cracked glass. His shoulders were rigid, one hand clenched at his side. Your daughter, Vira said quietly. The silver burns on her wrists were precise. Professional. Whoever poisoned her knew exactly what they were doing. I know. You're not a merchant. No. Not a tradesman or a farmer or any kind of common traveler. No. Vira studied the set of his shoulders, the military bearing he couldn't quite hide, the unconscious authority in every movement. Soldier. A pause. Something like that. And someone wants your daughter dead badly enough to poison her with silver wolfsbane in a public inn. His jaw tightened. Many people want many things. They won't succeed. The cold certainty in his voice sent a shiver down Vira's spine. This man wasn't making empty threats. He was making promises. What's your pack affiliation? She pressed. I told you. My name is TYX. That's not an answer. He turned from the window, those steel-grey eyes meeting hers. It's the only answer I can give you right now. For your safety as much as mine. My safety. Vira laughed. I'm 7 days from exile. I have 11 copper coins and a dying brother. How much less safe could I possibly be? You'd be surprised. TYX crossed the small space between them. Up close, his presence was overwhelming, not threatening, exactly, but powerful in a way that made her Omega instincts flutter nervously. There are things in this world far more dangerous than poverty, Vira. Forces you don't want attention from. I'm trying to protect you from that. By lying to me. By not telling you everything. There's a difference. Before Vira could argue, Sarah called out from the bed. Papa? Papa, I'm cold. All the hardness melted from TYX's face. He was across the cottage in 3 strides, gathering his daughter close. I'm here, sweetheart. Right here. Vira fetched her only other blanket, threadbare and thin but clean, and brought it to the bed. Here. It's not much, but... You're giving us your blanket. TYX stared at her. What will you use? I'll be fine by the fire. Vira. Take it. She needs warmth. She draped the blanket over Sarah before he could protest further. The child immediately burrowed into it, her small hand reaching out to grasp Vira's fingers. Stay, Sarah mumbled, half asleep. Don't go. Vira's heart clenched. I'm right here, little one. I'm not going anywhere. She sat on the edge of the bed, letting the child hold her hand. TYX settled in the chair nearby, watching them both with that same unreadable expression. You're good with her, he said quietly. I like children. Always have. Vira smoothed Sarah's damp hair back from her forehead. Before everything, I thought maybe I'd work in a pack nursery. Help care for the young ones. But that's not a position they give to outcasts. Their loss. Something in his tone made her look up. He was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. What? Nothing. Just. He paused. You remind me of someone. Someone who also believed healing was more important than politics. Who put children first, always. Sarah's mother. Pain flickered across his face. Yes. What happened to her? She died 3 years ago. His voice went flat, emotionless in that way that meant the emotion was too big to show. Murdered at a peace summit. Sao watched it happen. Vira's hand tightened on the child's. I'm sorry. So am I. The breaking storm finally exhausted itself as pale dawn light crept through Vira's cracked window. She woke stiff and aching, her body protesting every movement after spending the night curled on the cold floor beside the dying fire. Her neck cramped. Her muscles screamed. But she was alive, and so was everyone under her roof. Tilawyx stood sentinel by the window, silhouette outlined against the grey morning. He hadn't slept, she realized that immediately from the rigid set of his shoulders, the alertness in his posture. All night he'd kept watch, protecting his daughter even in the relative safety of her humble cottage. Sao remained peaceful beneath Vira's blanket, color fully restored to her cheeks, breathing deep and steady. The poison had been purged completely. Tomorrow there would be no trace of the silver wolfsbane that had nearly claimed her life. From the corner came a soft cough. Kale. Awake now, propped on one elbow, his fever-bright eyes studying their guests with unconcealed curiosity. Who are they? He whispered when Vira came to check on him. People who needed help. You gave her my medicine. No accusation colored his words. Just that same weary resignation she'd heard too many times from her too young brother. I did. Kale's gaze drifted to where Sao slept, so small and fragile-looking beneath the worn blanket. She's pretty. Looks like those fancy dolls they sell at the capital markets. She almost died last night. But you saved her. Kale managed a weak smile. You always do this. Save everyone except yourself. Stop talking nonsense and rest. Your fever's down a bit. Liar. But he settled back, closing his eyes. You're terrible at lying, Vira. Always have been. She pressed her palm to his forehead. He was right, the fever hadn't broken. Without the moon petal extract, it would climb again by afternoon. Guilt twisted in her stomach, sharp and familiar. She'd chosen a stranger's child over her own brother. What kind of sister did that make her? The kind their mother had raised, whispered a voice in her mind. The kind who heals without counting the cost. Tyx turned from the window, catching her staring. His steel-grey eyes swept over her, taking in the dark circles beneath her eyes, the way she favored her left side where sleeping on stone had bruised her ribs, the tremor in her hands from magical exhaustion. The roads should be passable by midday, he said quietly. We'll leave then. You saved him. Bailey. Used every bit of healing knowledge my mother taught me. Spent every copper we had on moon petal extract to keep him alive. But silver poisoning doesn't heal. It just lingers, slowly killing you unless you can afford constant treatment. She turned to face him. The healer in town charges 60 silver per vial. I need at least 2 vials a month. Do you know how impossible that is for an outcast Omega? Tyx's expression was unreadable. The pack should provide for its members. Even Omegas. Especially after a rogue attack. Should. Doesn't. Bitterness crept into Vira's voice. We're outcasts. My mother was executed for using forbidden magic when I was 16. Kale was 10. They branded us traitors by blood. No one helps traitors. What was her crime? Vira met his eyes. She healed the wrong person. A rebel alpha who'd spoken against the pack elders. They said she chose sides, used her magic for political purposes. They burned her in the town square and made us watch. She saw something flicker across Tyx's face. Anger, perhaps. Or recognition. And yet you still use the magic they killed her for. Only when absolutely necessary. Tonight was necessary. Vira wrapped her arms around herself. You asked why I opened the door. The truth is, I opened it because I'm my mother's daughter. She taught me that healing isn't political. Pain doesn't care about pack allegiances. And children, her voice broke slightly. Children especially deserve saving, no matter who their parents are or what side they're on. Tyx stood, moving to the window. Rain streamed down the cracked glass. His shoulders were rigid, one hand clenched at his side. Your daughter, Vira said quietly. The silver burns on her wrists were precise. Professional. Whoever poisoned her knew exactly what they were doing. I know. You're not a merchant. No. Not a tradesman or a farmer or any kind of common traveler. No. Vira studied the set of his shoulders, the military bearing he couldn't quite hide, the unconscious authority in every movement. Soldier. A pause. Something like that. And someone wants your daughter dead badly enough to poison her with silver wolfsbane in a public inn. His jaw tightened. Many people want many things. They won't succeed. The cold certainty in his voice sent a shiver down Vira's spine. This man wasn't making empty threats. He was making promises. What's your pack affiliation? She pressed. I told you. My name is TYX. That's not an answer. He turned from the window, those steel-grey eyes meeting hers. It's the only answer I can give you right now. For your safety as much as mine. My safety. Vira laughed. I'm 7 days from exile. I have 11 copper coins and a dying brother. How much less safe could I possibly be? You'd be surprised. TYX crossed the small space between them. Up close, his presence was overwhelming, not threatening, exactly, but powerful in a way that made her Omega instincts flutter nervously. There are things in this world far more dangerous than poverty, Vira. Forces you don't want attention from. I'm trying to protect you from that. By lying to me. By not telling you everything. There's a difference. Before Vira could argue, Sarah called out from the bed. Papa? Papa, I'm cold. All the hardness melted from TYX's face. He was across the cottage in 3 strides, gathering his daughter close. I'm here, sweetheart. Right here. Vira fetched her only other blanket, threadbare and thin but clean, and brought it to the bed. Here. It's not much, but... You're giving us your blanket. TYX stared at her. What will you use? I'll be fine by the fire. Vira. Take it. She needs warmth. She draped the blanket over Sarah before he could protest further. The child immediately burrowed into it, her small hand reaching out to grasp Vira's fingers. Stay, Sarah mumbled, half asleep. Don't go. Vira's heart clenched. I'm right here, little one. I'm not going anywhere. She sat on the edge of the bed, letting the child hold her hand. TYX settled in the chair nearby, watching them both with that same unreadable expression. You're good with her, he said quietly. I like children. Always have. Vira smoothed Sarah's damp hair back from her forehead. Before everything, I thought maybe I'd work in a pack nursery. Help care for the young ones. But that's not a position they give to outcasts. Their loss. Something in his tone made her look up. He was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. What? Nothing. Just. He paused. You remind me of someone. Someone who also believed healing was more important than politics. Who put children first, always. Sarah's mother. Pain flickered across his face. Yes. What happened to her? She died 3 years ago. His voice went flat, emotionless in that way that meant the emotion was too big to show. Murdered at a peace summit. Sarah watched it happen. Vira's hand tightened on the child's. I'm sorry. So am I. The breaking storm finally exhausted itself as pale dawn light crept through Vira's cracked window. She woke stiff and aching, her body protesting every movement after spending the night curled on the cold floor beside the dying fire. Her neck cramped. Her muscles screamed. But she was alive, and so was everyone under her roof. TYX stood sentinel by the window, silhouette outlined against the grey morning. He hadn't slept, she realized that immediately from the rigid set of his shoulders, the alertness in his posture. All night he'd kept watch, protecting his daughter even in the relative safety of her humble cottage. Sarah remained peaceful beneath Vira's blanket, color fully restored to her cheeks, breathing deep and steady. The poison had been purged completely. Tomorrow there would be no trace of the silver wolfsbane that had nearly claimed her life. From the corner came a soft cough. Kale. Awake now, propped on one elbow, his fever-bright eyes studying their guests with unconcealed curiosity. Who are they? He whispered when Vira came to check on him. People who needed help. You gave her my medicine. No accusation colored his words. Just that same weary resignation she'd heard too many times from her too young brother. I did. Cale's gaze drifted to where Sarah slept, so small and fragile looking beneath the worn blanket. She's pretty. Looks like those fancy dolls they sell at the capital markets. She almost died last night. But you saved her. Cale managed a weak smile. You always do this. Save everyone except yourself. Stop talking nonsense and rest. Your fever's down a bit. Liar. But he settled back, closing his eyes. You're terrible at lying, Vira. Always have been. She pressed her palm to his forehead. He was right, the fever hadn't broken. Without the moon petal extract, it would climb again by afternoon. Guilt twisted in her stomach, sharp and familiar. She'd chosen a stranger's child over her own brother. What kind of sister did that make her? The kind their mother had raised, whispered a voice in her mind. The kind who heals without counting the cost. TJYX turned from the window, catching her staring. His steel-gray eyes swept over her, taking in the dark circles beneath her eyes, the way she favored her left side where sleeping on stone had bruised her ribs, the tremor in her hands from magical exhaustion. The roads should be passable by midday, he said quietly. We'll leave then. Vira nodded, throat suddenly tight. She'd known they couldn't stay. Known this was temporary. But somehow the cottage felt emptier already, as if their departure had already carved out a hollow space in the walls. I'll make breakfast. She moved toward the cupboard, then remembered, there was nothing to make. Half a loaf of stale bread. A jar of medicinal honey. Nothing fit to offer guests. You've given more than enough. TJYX crossed the small space, pulling a heavy leather pouch from his belt. He set it on her table with a solid thunk that made her jump. What? Payment. For the medicine. For your hospitality. For saving Sarah's life. Vira's fingers trembled as she loosened the drawstring. Gold coins spilled across the scarred wood, gleaming, heavy, impossibly real. She counted them twice, certain she'd made a mistake. 53 gold pieces. Her vision blurred. This is too much. The moon petal cost 60 silver, not. And the forbidden magic. TJYX's voice stayed quiet but carried an edge of steel. The golden healing that could get you executed if anyone learned what you'd done? The life force you burned through to purge poison from a stranger's child? What's the price for that, Vira? What's the cost of your safety if the wrong people discover what you are? She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the weight of gold under her shaking hands. This money could save Cale. Could pay the back taxes with enough left over for 6 months of medicine. Could buy them actual food, real firewood, maybe even repairs to the cottage roof. I don't understand. Why give me this much? TJYX leaned against the wall, arms crossed, studying her with that same intense focus that made her feel like he could see straight through her skin to the desperate, terrified girl underneath. I've spent most of my life watching people choose power over compassion. Watching them hoard resources while others starve. Watching them calculate the worth of every action, every gesture, making sure they never give more than they'll receive in return. His jaw tightened. You didn't calculate. You saw a dying child and used your last medicine without hesitation. You revealed forbidden magic that could get you killed. You gave us your bed, your blanket, your warmth. You chose compassion when you had every reason to choose survival. He straightened, moving closer until she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. That kind of choice is rare, Vira. Precious beyond measure. And I'm fairly certain you just saved the life of someone extremely important. So no, this isn't too much. If anything, it's not enough. The way he said extremely important sent ice down her spine. She studied him again, the military bearing, the unconscious authority, the expensive cloak his daughter had been wrapped in despite his own rough clothing. Who are you really? A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Someone who owes you an impossible debt. That's not an answer. It's the best one I can give. For now. Before Vira could press further, Sarah stirred. Small amber eyes blinked open, immediately seeking her father. Then they found Vira, and the child's entire face lit up with joy so pure it hurt to witness. You're still here. Sarah scrambled upright, blanket pooling around her waist. I had a dream you disappeared like smoke. I'm real. Vira managed a smile. How do you feel? Hungry. And my tummy doesn't hurt anymore. Sour cocked her head, studying Vira with unnerving intensity. You made the poison go away. I remember the gold light. It was warm. Like sunshine in winter. TYX's attention sharpened. Vira felt his gaze boring into her, but she kept her focus on the child. You're very brave, Sarah. The purge was painful, but you fought through it. Will you make breakfast? Papa burns everything. A startled laugh escaped TYX. That's not entirely fair. I only burned the porridge twice. And the eggs. And the bread. All right, point taken. He held up his hands in surrender, but Vira caught the warmth in his expression, the love that softened every harsh line of his face when he looked at his daughter. I don't have much to offer, Vira admitted. Just stale bread and... We have supplies in our travel pack, TYX interrupted. Left hidden in the forest when I ran here last night. I'll retrieve them. He was out the door before she could protest, moving with the silent efficiency of a trained warrior. The cottage felt strangely empty without his overwhelming presence. Sarah scooted to the edge of the bed, bare feet dangling. He likes you. Vira nearly choked. What? Papa. He watches you the way he used to watch Mama. Like you're a puzzle he's trying to solve. I think you're imagining things, little one. I'm 5, not stupid. Sarah's amber eyes held unexpected wisdom. He hasn't looked at anyone like that since Mama died. You made him remember what hope feels like. The words struck Vira silent. Before she could formulate a response, TYX returned carrying a leather pack, water streaming from his hair and shoulders. The rain had stopped, but the forest remained soaked. He unpacked supplies with practiced efficiency: dried meat, fresh bread wrapped in cloth, cheese, even a small pot of jam. Luxuries Vira hadn't tasted in months. How long were you traveling with all this? She asked. We left the capital 4 days ago. Should have been a simple journey. His expression darkened. Someone knew our route. Knew when we'd stop. The attack at the inn was planned, precise. They wanted Sarah dead and knew exactly how to do it. Vira's hands stilled in the act of slicing bread. You keep saying they. Do you know who? I have suspicions. No proof yet. Steel entered his voice. But when I find them, they'll learn what it means to threaten my daughter. They ate in quiet tension, Sarah chattering happily between bites, Kale propped against the wall to join them, TYX and Vira locked in their own thoughts. The food was divine after days of near starvation, but Vira could barely taste it past the dread building in her chest. This was ending. They would leave. Return to whatever dangerous world they'd come from. And she would be alone again with Kale and their crumbling cottage and 7 days until exile. Except now she had gold. She had options. She had hope. Why did hope feel so much like grief? After the meal, TYX began gathering their belongings. Sour protested, clinging to Vira's hand. I don't want to go. Can't we stay longer? We've imposed enough, sweetheart. Vira has her own life, her own responsibilities. But I like her. She's nice. And she smells like flowers and safety. TYX's expression softened. He knelt before his daughter, gentle hands on her small shoulders. I know. But we have to go home now. Back to the capital where you'll be safe. Will I see Vira again? Silence stretched. TYX's eyes found Vira's over Sarah's head, and something passed between them, a question, maybe. Or a promise. Maybe someday, Vira answered when he didn't. Her voice came out rougher than intended. That's not a real answer. Sarah's bottom lip trembled. That's what grown-ups say when they mean no. Sarah, TYX began. I want a real answer. Will I see her or won't I? Vira crouched down, bringing herself eye level with the child. She tucked a strand of dark hair behind Sarah's ear, heartbreaking at the desperate hope in those amber eyes. The world is big and complicated, little one. Sometimes we can't control when we see people again. But I promise, if there's ever a way, if fate allows it, I would love to see you again. You promise? I promise. Sarah threw her arms around Vira's neck, squeezing tight. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being kind. Thank you for the gold light that made everything better. Vira held the child close, memorizing the feel of small arms around her neck, the scent of innocence and trust. When was the last time anyone had hugged her like this? As if she mattered. As if she was worth loving. When Sour finally pulled back, tears streaked her cheeks. Heartwarming lifted his daughter gently, wrapping her in the fine black cloak that had survived the night's ordeal. At the door, he paused. Looked back. If you ever need anything, protection, help, resources, ask for me at the capital. Tell them Heartwarming Valin sent you. They'll know where to find me. Valin. Vira's breath caught. That's a royal house name. His smile held secrets and shadows. Is it? I must have forgotten to mention that detail. You. But he was already walking away, disappearing into the dripping forest with Sour cradled against his chest. Vira stood in the doorway, watching until they vanished completely between the trees. The cottage felt cavernous in their absence. Tomb silent except for Kale's ragged breathing. She closed the door, sank against it, stared at the pouch of gold still sitting on the table. 53 gold pieces. A fortune. A future. Who was he really? Kale asked from his corner. I don't know. Vira's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Liar. You knew he was important the second you saw him. I knew he was dangerous. And you helped him anyway. Gave him my medicine. Used forbidden magic. Showed him what you are. Yes. You're completely insane. Probably. But they were both smiling through the ache of loss, because for the first time in 6 months, survival seemed possible instead of an impossible dream fading with each passing day. 3 days after Heartwarming and Sour vanished into the forest, Vira stood in the territorial market with 20 gold coins hidden in her mother's embroidered pouch. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she navigated the crowded stalls, acutely aware of hostile stares following her every movement. The market sprawled across the packed central square, wooden booths selling everything from fresh meat to iron tools, from healing herbs to leather goods. Vira had always felt like an intruder here, tolerated but unwelcome. Today, with gold weighing down her pouch, she felt dangerous. Powerful. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. Her first stop was the medicine stall run by healer Garrick, the same man who'd sneered at her for months, who'd refused credit, who'd called her omega trash to her face. He looked up as she approached, and something ugly flickered across his weathered features. Contempt. Dismissal. The automatic assumption that she had nothing worth his time. I need 4 vials of moon petal extract, Vira said, keeping her voice level and cold. Garrick's eyebrows rose. That's 240 silver, girl. You expect me to believe you've got that kind of coin? I expect you to do your job. She pulled out 3 gold pieces, setting them on his counter with deliberate precision. Each coin clinked against wood, solid, real, undeniable. Here's 3 gold. Keep the change for your trouble. The healer's face went pale, then flushed an ugly red. Around them, other market-goers had noticed. Whispers spread like wildfire through dry grass. Where'd a gutter omega get gold? Must have stolen it. Maybe she sold herself to some rich alpha. Vira ignored them all, keeping her focus locked on Garrick. He packaged the vials with trembling hands, his earlier arrogance shattered. She took the medicine without a word of thanks, he didn't deserve her gratitude, and moved on. Next came the tax collector's booth. The same clerk who'd nailed the eviction notice to her door 3 weeks ago looked up with barely concealed irritation. Vira NYSS. Here to beg for more time. Here to pay in full. She counted out the exact amount, 23 silver coins converted from gold, and watched satisfaction drain from his pinched face. I believe that clears my debt. I'll need a receipt showing my taxes are current. He stammered something about processing time, but she simply stood there, waiting, until he produced the documentation with a wax seal proving she was paid through the end of the season. The power in that moment sang through her veins. For the first time since her mother's execution, she wasn't begging. Wasn't apologizing for existing. She had resources, and resources meant respect, even from people who despised her bloodline. Her final stops were simpler. Real food from the butcher and baker, firewood from the lumber merchant, a warm wool blanket from the weaver. Luxuries she'd gone without for so long they felt almost sinful now. Old Marta the baker watched her pile purchases into a borrowed cart, calculating eyes missing nothing. Big spending for an outcast Omega, the elderly woman observed. Makes people curious where the money came from. People should mind their business, Vira replied evenly. True enough. Marta leaned closer, lowering her voice. But curiosity ain't the only thing you need to worry about, girl. Word travels fast in Packlands. You might want to be careful. Before Vira could ask what she meant, the sound of approaching horses silenced the entire market. A patrol of royal guards entered the square, 6 riders in black and silver armor, the kingdom's crest emblazoned on their chest plates. Everyone froze. Royal guards never came to border territories unless something serious had happened. The captain dismounted with fluid grace, a silver-haired alpha named Draven, known throughout the territories for his cold efficiency and unwavering loyalty to the crown. His pale eyes swept the market, predator sharp, missing nothing. We're searching for a healer, he announced, voice carrying across the suddenly silent square. Female. Omega. Possesses golden healing magic. Vira's blood turned to ice. Her hands clenched around the cart handle, knuckles white. No. They couldn't know. TYX wouldn't have. But someone else would. Old Marta's gnarled finger pointed directly at her. That's her. Vira NYSS. Lives in the outcast quarter past the eastern woods. Traitor. The word screamed through Vira's mind, but she kept her expression neutral as 6 sets of eyes locked onto her position. The guards surrounded her in seconds, forming a loose circle that was somehow more threatening than if they'd drawn weapons. Vira NYSS. Captain Draven approached, hand resting casually on his sword hilt. You're to come with us. King's orders. I haven't broken any laws. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. No one said you had. His pale eyes studied her with unnerving intensity. This is an invitation. What if I decline? Then it becomes considerably less friendly. No threat in his tone, just cold statement of fact. You'd be wise to accept. The Alpha King doesn't extend invitations lightly. Vira's mind raced through impossible options. Run. She'd never outpaced trained warriors on horseback. Fight? Laughable. Refuse? They'd take her anyway, probably in chains. I need to bring medicine to my brother first. His ill and needs. We'll send someone with the medicine and instructions for his care. You're coming now. The finality in those words left no room for argument. Vira glanced back at her cart full of purchases, at the life she'd been trying to rebuild with TYX's gold. Can I at least say goodbye? No. Draven gestured to one of his men. Bring her a horse. We ride immediately. They gave her a docile mare and surrounded her in formation, 2 guards ahead, 2 behind, 1 on each side. Not prisoners positioning exactly, but close enough. Captain Draven rode directly beside her as they left the market behind, heading east through dense forest toward lands Vira had never seen. No one spoke for the first hour. Rain-soaked trees gave way to drier terrain as they climbed steadily upward. Vira's mind spun with questions, fears, the terrible certainty that using her forbidden magic, even to save a child's life, had just destroyed everything. You healed someone important 3 nights ago, Draven said quietly, breaking the oppressive silence. Not a question. I healed a child who was poisoned. And her father. He said his name was TYX. Draven's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. I'm sure he did. What's that supposed to mean? The captain didn't answer, but something in his expression told Vira she'd walked into a situation far more complicated than she'd imagined. They rode for 3 hours straight, only stopping once to water the horses. The forest thinned, and the land opened into rolling hills dotted with farms and distant villages. Civilization. Real civilization, not the forgotten border territories where outcasts scraped by. Then they crested a hill, and Vira's breath caught. The capital city sprawled across the valley below, massive white stone towers reaching toward grey clouds, golden banners snapping in the wind, walls so thick and high they seemed to touch the sky. Thousands of buildings packed together, more people than Vira had seen in her entire life concentrated in one impossible space. She'd never been here. Never wanted to come. Capitals meant alphas, politics, power plays, and danger for someone like her. Yet here she was, being escorted through the main gates like some kind of dignitary instead of an outcast Omega who should have been invisible. People stopped to stare as the patrol passed, common folk pressing against buildings, nobles in fine clothing pausing mid-conversation, children pointing at the royal guards. Vira kept her eyes forward, spine straight, refusing to show fear even as her heart hammered wildly. They stopped before a massive fortress that dominated the city center, walls of pale stone, towers flying the kingdom's crest, guards posted every 20 feet. The royal den, heart of power. Home of the Alpha King. Someone wants to see you, Captain Draven said, and for the first time since they'd met, something almost like sympathy crossed his hard features. Vira dismounted on trembling legs, staring up at the fortress that would either be her salvation or her execution ground. They led Vira through corridors that belonged in fever dreams, not reality. Marble floors polished to mirror brightness reflected golden chandeliers. Tapestries depicting ancient battles covered walls 3 times her height. Weapons from legendary wars hung in displays, silver swords, blessed arrows, shields bearing house crests of bloodlines that had ruled for centuries. The scent of power saturated everything, alpha musk, old magic, the weight of decisions that shaped kingdoms. Vira's Omega instinct screamed at her to lower her eyes, make herself small, apologize for daring to breathe the same air as her betters. She refused. Her mother had died with her head high. Vira would do the same if it came to that. Guards flanked her on both sides, their presence more escort than imprisonment, but the distinction felt meaningless. She was trapped regardless, no escape from the royal den, no hope of disappearing back into her forgotten corner of the world. They stopped before massive oak doors carved with wolves in various poses, hunting, howling, protecting their young. 2 guards pushed them open without ceremony. The office beyond was surprisingly intimate compared to the grandiose hallways. Bookshelves lined 2 walls, crammed with leather-bound volumes. Maps covered a 3rd wall, marking territories and trade routes. Weapons hung on the 4th, not ceremonial displays but working blades, well-maintained and clearly used. And standing by the window, backlit by pale afternoon sun, was Tyx. Except it wasn't Tyx. Not the desperate father in torn, blood-stained clothing who'd pounded on her door during the breaking storm. This man wore black and silver, the royal colors, tailored to perfection. His dark hair was clean, tied back with a silver cord, revealing the sharp angles of his face that she'd only glimpsed before. The tattoos on his forearms weren't just military marks. They were royal bloodline markings. Ancient. Unmistakable. And on his finger, catching the light, a heavy signet ring bearing the kingdom's crest, a wolf with a crown, surrounded by stars. Vira's legs nearly gave out. You. The word came out strangled. Hello, Vira. His voice was the same, deep, rough-edged, surprisingly gentle for a man of his size. But everything else had transformed. You're Alpha King Tyx Valen. He inclined his head with perfect formality, though something flickered in his steel-grey eyes. Amusement? Guilt? We met under informal circumstances. Vira couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the roaring in her ears. She'd saved the Alpha King's daughter. Used forbidden magic on the royal heir. Revealed herself as a golden healer to the most powerful alpha in the kingdom. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I simply didn't tell you everything. You let me think you were a soldier. Some common warrior fleeing in attack. I am a soldier, among other things. He moved away from the window, closer, and Vira forced herself not to retreat. Would you have opened the door if I'd announced myself as the Alpha King? Would you have felt safe using your healing magic? Or would you have been too terrified to save Sarah's life? The logic was sound, but fury still burned through her chest. You paid me with gold. Told me to ask for you at the capital. You knew I'd figure it out eventually. I hoped you'd trust me enough that it wouldn't matter. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could smell pine and rain, the same scent from that storm-drenched night, now mixed with expensive oils and the unmistakable musk of an Alpha King. Was I wrong? I don't even know you. Then let me fix that. Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly this time. 100 questions fought for dominance in Vira's mind. She picked the most important one. Why am I here? Because you saved Sarah's life. You already paid me. Overpaid me. We're even. A slight smile touched his mouth, the first real expression she'd seen since entering this room. That was a down payment, not full compensation. For what? Tyx's expression shifted, something raw and vulnerable breaking through the royal composure. My daughter hasn't spoken in 3 years. Not since she watched her mother die at a peace summit. Assassinated right in front of her while she was hiding under a table. Vira's breath caught, hand instinctively pressing against her chest. 3 years of silence, he continued, voice rough. The best healers in the kingdom tried everything, herbs, potions, magic, therapy. Nothing worked. I'd accepted she might never speak again. That the trauma had stolen her voice forever. He paused, jaw tight. Then she spent one night in your cottage. And the next morning, she told me she wanted to visit the kind lady with the golden light again. Full sentences. Clear speech. Like the silence had never happened. Tears burned behind Vira's eyes. Tyx. I'm offering you a position. He spoke quickly now, as if afraid she'd interrupt. As Sarah's personal caretaker. You'd live here in the royal wing. Your brother too, full medical care, everything he needs. Salary. Protection. Safety from anyone who might harm you for your healing abilities. Anything you need, it's yours. The offer hit Vira like a physical blow. Everything she'd dreamed of, security, medicine for Kale, protection from persecution. Handed to her on a silver platter by the most powerful man in the kingdom. Why? Her voice came out barely a whisper. Because my daughter needs you. Simple. Direct. Devastating in its honesty. Because in one night, you did what years of trained professionals couldn't. You made her feel safe enough to speak again. I'm not qualified for this. Vira's hands trembled. I'm an outcast with no training in royal protocols, no education in. I don't need protocol. Steel entered his voice. I need someone who'll put Sarah first. Someone who chose to save her even when it cost them everything they had. Someone who used forbidden magic, risking execution, because a child's life mattered more than their own safety. You don't know me, Vira protested weakly. I know enough. His eyes burned into hers with unsettling intensity. I know you're a golden healer, the first I've encountered in my lifetime. I know you have royal Omega blood running through your veins, though you clearly don't know your own lineage. I know you're brave and selfless and exactly what Sarah needs to heal. The words hung between them, heavy with implications Vira wasn't ready to examine. What about what I need? The question escaped before she could stop it. Surprise flickered across Tyx's face, as if no one had ever asked him to consider someone else's needs before agreeing to serve. What do you need, Vira? She thought of Kale, still weak and feverish in their crumbling cottage. Thought of 7 days until exile, of copper coins that would never be enough, of a lifetime spent scrambling for survival while the world ground her down piece by piece. Then she thought of Sarah's small arms around her waist. Thank you for saving me. I need my brother to be safe, Vira said quietly. I need to know he'll never go hungry or cold again. I need to know that using my healing magic won't get us both killed. I need. Her voice broke slightly. I need to matter. To be more than just an outcast Omega waiting to die. Done. No hesitation. Just absolute certainty. Just like that. Just like that. Tyx extended his hand, not a command, but an offer. Do we have an agreement? Vira stared at his outstretched hand. Calloused. Scarred. The hand of a warrior and a king, offering her salvation. She took it. His grip was warm, firm, and for the first time in years, Vira felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. They gave Vira a suite of rooms that defied comprehension. 3 interconnected chambers, bedroom, sitting room, and private bath, each larger than her entire cottage had been. The bedroom alone could have housed 6 families comfortably. A massive 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk sheets the color of midnight, soft enough to make her wonder if she was touching clouds instead of fabric. Windows overlooking the royal gardens let in afternoon light that painted everything gold. Thick carpets cushioned her feet. A wardrobe stood open, already filled with dresses in her size, how had they known, in colors she'd never been allowed to wear as an outcast. Vira stood in the center of it all, turning slowly, trying to process that this wasn't a dream. That she actually lived here now. Kale arrived that evening, carried on a litter by palace servants, his eyes huge as moons. This is insane, he breathed the moment they were alone. I know. We're living in the palace. I know. With the Alpha King. His fevered gaze found hers, equal parts awe and terror. Vira, what did you do? I opened a door during a storm. Everything else just happened. Kale laughed, actually laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. It was the first real laugh she'd heard from him in 6 months, and the sound nearly broke her. A knock interrupted the moment. Healer Ilara entered, a kindly beta woman with grey-streaked hair and gentle hands. She examined Kale with professional efficiency, asking questions, checking his pulse, studying the silver burns that had never fully healed. He'll recover fully, Ilara announced after a thorough examination, and Vira's knees went weak with relief. The damage is extensive but treatable with proper care and medication. Give me 6 weeks, and I'll have him running again. 6 weeks. Vira's voice cracked. You're certain? I'm the best healer in the kingdom, dear. I'm always certain. Ilara patted her arm with motherly affection. Your brother will be fine. Now, you need rest too. You look like you haven't slept properly in months. She wasn't wrong. Vira couldn't remember the last time she'd slept without waking every few hours, alert for danger, calculating how to stretch resources another day. After Ilara left with promises to return at dawn, Vira helped Kale into the second bedroom, smaller than hers but still impossibly luxurious. He sank into the soft mattress with a sigh that sounded like prayer. I'm not dreaming, am I? He whispered. If you are, we're sharing the same dream. Good. I don't want to wake up. Neither did she. That evening, another knock came. Vira opened the door to find Sarah standing in the hallway, clutching a ragged stuffed wolf that looked like it had survived several wars. Papa said you live here now. Those amber eyes searched Vira's face with desperate hope. I do. Forever. For as long as you need me. Pure joy lit Sarah's features like sunrise. Will you read to me? Papa tries, but he does all the voices wrong. His dragon sounds like he's choking on rocks. Vira glanced past Sarah to where Tiwix stood in the hallway, arms crossed, looking faintly embarrassed. I'm told my troll voice is equally offensive, he admitted. Sarah giggled, actually giggled, and Vira realized this child was healing moment by moment, finding pieces of herself she'd lost when her mother died. I'd love to read to you. They settled in Vira's sitting room, Sarah curling up beside her on the plush sofa, warm and trusting. Tiwix stood awkwardly in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he belonged. You can join us, Vira offered, surprised by how much she meant it. He sat in the chair across from them, watching. As Vira read a story about a brave wolf who saved her pack from winter darkness, she kept catching Tiwix staring. Not at the book. At her. With an expression she couldn't name, something between wonder and hunger and fear, like he was looking at something precious he didn't quite believe was real. Sarah fell asleep halfway through, head pillowed on Vira's lap. Tiwix lifted his daughter gently, cradling her against his chest with practiced ease. I'll put her to bed, he whispered. Don't move. He returned 10 minutes later, closing the door quietly behind him. The sitting room felt smaller suddenly, more intimate, with just the two of them and the crackling fire. There's something you need to know. Tiwix's expression had shifted to something harder, more guarded. The royal court isn't happy about your presence here. Vira's stomach sank. Because I'm an Omega. Because you're an unbonded Omega with no pack affiliation, mysterious healing powers, and suddenly living in the royal wing with unprecedented access to the king and his heir. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The council sees you as a threat. A potential spy. A weakness someone could exploit to get to me through Sour. Are they right? Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, that she'd asked so directly. About the threat? Probably. You're one of the most dangerous people in this palace. He said it without malice, almost with admiration. There will be challenges, he continued. Tests. People who try to undermine you or hurt you to get to me. Court politics are vicious, Vira. I can protect you from direct attacks, but I can't shield you from everything. Some battles you'll have to fight alone. Then why bring me here? THYX pushed off the wall, moving closer. Because my daughter smiled today. For the first time since her mother's assassination. Because she laughed. Because when I asked what she wanted for her birthday next month, she said, I want Vira to stay forever. His voice roughened with emotion he didn't bother hiding. That's worth any political headache. Worth any threat the council throws at us. Sour's healing is worth everything. Vira stood, restless energy driving her to pace. I won't let her down. I know you won't. And I won't be chased away by scheming alphas or territorial councils who think I don't belong here. Fire entered her voice. I've survived being outcast, hunted, starved. I've watched my mother burn and my brother nearly die. Whatever they throw at me, I've faced worse. A fierce smile crossed TYX's face. I hoped you'd say that. But I need you to be honest with me from now on. No more secrets. No more hidden identities. If we're doing this, if I'm protecting Sour, I need to know what I'm up against. Agreed. Ask me anything. Who really tried to kill Sour? Hey friends, before we continue, I need to ask a favor. If this story is pulling you in, if Vira's journey is resonating with you, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Share this in the comments. Where are you listening from? What do you think will happen next? Your support helps me create more stories like this. Now, let's see how Teacher YX answers that dangerous question. His expression darkened, winter steel returning to his eyes. I have suspects. Members of the council who oppose certain policies I've implemented. Rival houses who think they have better claims to the throne. Maybe even foreign powers who want to destabilize the kingdom by eliminating the heir. But no proof. Not yet. But when I find them. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. The promise of violence hung in the air like a blade. Will you tell me when you know? Why? Because if someone tried to hurt that little girl once, they'll try again. And I need to know how to protect her. Something shifted in Teacher YX's gaze. Respect. Recognition. Something deeper that made Vira's breath catch. You really meant it, he said quietly. When you said you'd put her first. Always. That's not negotiable. He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. The alpha dominance radiating from him should have terrified her omega instincts. Instead, it felt like standing near a bonfire, intense, overwhelming, but somehow safe. Most people who come to the palace want something from me, TYX said. Power. Influence. Wealth. Status. They see Sour as a tool to get closer to the throne. I'm not most people. No. His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with surprising gentleness. You're extraordinary. And you have no idea how rare that is. Vira's heart hammered. Teacher YX. I should go. Let you rest. He stepped back, breaking whatever spell had woven between them. Tomorrow will be challenging. The council has requested to meet you. It won't be pleasant. I can handle it. I believe you can. He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. Vira. Yes. Thank you. For opening your door that night. For choosing compassion when you had every reason to choose survival. You changed everything. Before she could respond, he was gone. Vira stood alone in her beautiful new room, hand pressed to her racing heart. Outside, the palace settled into night, guards changing shifts, servants extinguishing lamps, the kingdom breathing in and out like a living thing. Somewhere in the royal wing, Sarah slept peacefully, safe and healing. Somewhere in the adjacent room, Kale rested without pain for the first time in months. And Vira realized her life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. She'd opened her door to a stranger in a storm, desperate and bleeding, carrying a dying child. She'd had no idea she was letting in a king. No idea that one act of mercy would become the thread that fate used to weave a new destiny. The breaking storm had passed, but its promise remained. Great change, fate turning on its axis, nothing ever the same again. Vira crossed to the window, looking out over the capital city spread below like scattered stars. This was her world now, beautiful, dangerous, full of possibilities and threats in equal measure. She thought of her mother's last words, spoken as flames rose around the stake. Healing is never wrong, my daughter. Remember that. When they try to make you small, remember your power matters. Use it. Always. I will, Mama, Vira whispered to the night. I promise. Tomorrow would bring challenges. Politics. Enemies. Tests she couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, she was safe. Kale was healing. And a little girl with amber eyes slept peacefully because Vira had chosen compassion over fear. That was enough. That was everything. To be continued in part 2.